Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Cole, and I'm currently the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Community Engagement at the American Marketing Association. I'm here to welcome you all to our Marketer Like Me series. A series is a set of interviews hosted by the AMA, an effort to highlight the diverse narratives and best practices from senior leaders of color in the marketing industry. I'll be moderating a casual but yet insightful conversation with our guests, highlighting their journey into the field, how DEI is contributing to their experience, and sharing any lessons that they've learned along the way. So I have the great privilege and honor of being joined by Ramon Jones, who's currently the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Nationwide. I'll let Ramon kick us off by taking a few minutes to introduce himself and briefly share a little bit about what they do in their role currently.
Hey, Chris, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me, or as I like to say, thanks for letting me make the cut. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to having a really good conversation with you today. Yes, as you described, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Nationwide. I've been here at Nationwide for just about 20 years, a little more than 20 years. We'll talk a little bit more about my background in a couple of minutes, but not all of that time has been in marketing. I've been in marketing for roughly about 5 years or so, and I've been Chief Marketing Officer for the last 2. And so there's a lot behind that one that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. A little bit about Nationwide, Fortune 100 company, diversified financial services company. Most people know us through our jingle, Nationwide is on your side. That's part of my job, those 7 notes and the jingle. Whenever you hear that, you know that my team's behind that. I'm responsible for our brand strategy, business strategy as it comes to, as it relates to marketing, if you will, advertising and creative. That all falls under the umbrella of what I'm responsible for. Social media and our footprint and presence in the social space and the ever growing and changing social space. And then corporate communications and public relations. And so it's up to me to manage our company's reputation and other duties as assigned. But most and foremost, I manage a brand, and I manage a brand that's pretty exciting to do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time out to interview today and get to know you a little bit better. I would say I was going to mention the Nationwide jingle because it was totally on my mind when I knew that you were going to be interviewing today. So
good.
The brand is alive and well in my mind at random times throughout the day. I will catch myself singing that. So it's working.
Good.
So, all right, cool. So just to kind of get folks to get a little bit more about your background and how you really got into your role and all the great work that you're doing now, can you share a little bit about how you got into the field of marketing? I know that's a journey that everyone kind of shares their own path, but we'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure thing. And so my path or my journey to marketing is a little less traditional, if you will. I grew up, I've always been in insurance and I've been in this business for quite some time, but mostly in operations. And so earlier in my career, I started out as what we call a desk underwriter. And these are the folks that price accounts. And so you're looking at actuarial tables and a variety of other things. It's more of a finance type of role. And that led me into a career of operations where I managed a call center for a while. My aspiration was to ultimately get to regional leadership running a small P&L. And so I ran our southern region for a while, which led to running a larger P&L. So I ran the Western US for a couple of years. And that was my biggest job up until the time that I was more or less tapped to come into a marketing role. And the name of the game was to round out my experiences, if you will. I had a chance to establish myself in operations, and it was time to do something just a little different. And so I stepped into financial services marketing about 5 years ago. And so leading marketing for one of our business units. And I did that same role for our property casualty company. So those are the 2 larger portions of our company. And about 2 years ago, we got a new CEO, a change at the top. And lo and behold, I was asked to step into the Chief Marketing Officer chair, which was just, stepping into a marketing role with a business P&L background was actually a fascinating combination because here I am, I have the opportunity to develop a discipline around customer acquisition and managing customer experience. having come from a background where, we're actually selling the product and we're actually interacting with the people that sell our products. And so it makes me kind of a unique marketer, having that business background, and which gets to something that we'll talk about later, the importance of talent and having the right people around you. But it's been a lot of fun. And now, mind you, 2-3 months into my new job, the world changes. And, a pandemic starts and we send everyone home. And so it's been a fascinating couple of years here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the whole past year and a half, I think, has completely altered so much for everybody. So I completely understand about starting new roles during very uncertain.
Yeah, exactly.
And kind of building on that, because I know you just talked about your role as a CMO, and I think we hear about that so often too, about how that role has evolved and changed so much over the years, and understanding your background of transitioning into that role. What are some of the things that you kind of see as unique to the role of a CMO, and especially as as we continue to move forward in these uncertain times? What are some of the top things that will be top of mind for you in your role as you move forward?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind, Chris. First and foremost, nowadays, everyone is a heightened sense of understanding where companies stand. And when you're managing a brand, we have to be particularly careful, especially in our business, because we sell a intangible product. We sell security, if you will. We sell peace of mind. And it's really important that we manage our reputation and manage that trust factor so that people trust us with the most important things that are in their lives, their homes and their cars and their retirement and their family members. Those things are super important for us. It's important to any company, but managing that brand and reputation, first and foremost, that is something that is top of mind for me on a regular basis. The second thing that I will say is just understanding the volumes of data that we have access to, understanding what that data is telling you. And so I'll use a kind of a tactical example, but we track miles driven, and we track driving behavior and a variety of other things that's part of running the business. What does that tell us about marketing and how we need to market our products, and how do we build or innovate products and therefore tell that story to a world that's having changing and adjusting driving habits? And people are staying home these days, and so they're probably not driving as much, and so their risks and concerns look a lot different these days. How are we making sure that we're communicating to folks in a broader sense, not just telling people, hey, switch to my company and save $500. Every insurance company is saying that. We need to say a little bit more. We need to help people understand that we stand for protection with extraordinary care. We stand for managing trust, and we stand for values, and we want to represent America as we tell our story. And so when you look at our ads, when you look at our campaigns, does that come through? And so it's important, and I know we're going to talk about D&I shortly, but it's important to me as the ambassador of our brand to make sure that all of America shows up in our commercials. And so we'll get to that, and that's the fun part of the job. But again, these are decisions that are driven by data. So how am I using the data and information that's available to me to make better brand decisions going forward?
I appreciate that. I think, again, the data piece is continuing to be, even for us as an organization, as we move forward, and just how we use that, integrate it, collect it, and really just better understand our communities, folks that we serve, and things like that as we move forward. So
yeah. Hey, Chris, can I throw an audible at you?
Yeah.
I just thought of one more thing that's like top of mind. I can't believe I didn't say this. Talent. No other way to put it. There is a war for talent out there, and finding people whose values align with those of our companies, finding people with the skill set, or at least the intellectual horsepower that we can teach the skill sets to help us be better marketers. It's tough these days. And we're located in the Midwest. We're in Columbus, Ohio. And in the past, that has been a strategic advantage to us, or for us, because it's a great place to live. People move here, folks are able to build long careers. Well, nowadays, people can live anywhere. Yeah. And so talent wants to be where they want to be. And the challenge is that we now have companies who may be located in different places that are recruiting talent and saying, hey, stay where you are we still want you to work for this company. And that's not a unique issue for Nationwide. I think that's happening in every industry these days. And so as I look at the issues that are in front of us and, some real challenges that we're going to have over the next, 6, 12, 18 months, that talent piece is going to be a very big deal for us. And for me particularly, I want to make sure that I'm hiring, developing, promoting, training diverse talent. And that just adds another element to that challenge that I mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's real. I think it's huge. I feel it now too with the work that I'm doing and just being able to work remotely and still nurture that talent as you continue to like fill folks into those roles. So yeah, that makes complete connection to that.
Sure.
Yeah, connecting kind of a little bit to that talent piece. And maybe we can also kind of take a step back and just getting to know you a little bit more back. We have a whole collegiate community that's part of the AMA that is currently also right now navigating either that job search or about to graduate, figuring out what, next steps they kind of have. So I'd love to hear just more about how that journey, was for you. And especially now looking back in your role, like what were maybe some of the most important things? Maybe it's like a set of advice that you took back or a moment that you're like, hey, actually, this really impacted my trajectory in a positive way. Anything you want to highlight from that you can share with our community?
Yeah, I'll throw a couple of thoughts your way. Coming out of undergrad, I grew up on the East Coast in Philadelphia, and I did my undergrad at Villanova. I was a finance major, and right away I wanted to come out and go take over the world of finance and business. And I did an internship before my senior year with an insurance company, and it just completely opened my mind and opened my eyes to an industry that I just hadn't really considered. And ended up right out of undergrad working for that company before going to grad school. But the lesson in that was that internship was helpful for me because it showed me another option that's out there. And so particularly for those students that are still students, choose non-traditional internships or choose something that you can kind of try it on for size right now because you have the luxury of time in front of you. And you'd be surprised what you might find. I mean, there's a lot of different industries, all of which benefit from and utilize the skills that we build as marketers. I'll come back to that one in a second. So worked for that insurer, went back to graduate school to get an MBA at the University of Pennsylvania. Then I did consulting for a couple of years. And so the benefit of working for an Accenture, which is based in Chicago, for a couple of years, is that in that kind of environment, you're seeing lots of different companies and you're meeting a lot of different people in a lot of different industries. And what I learned through that process was that regardless of the business or the industry, understanding how that income statement and balance sheet works is what drives business results. So sales, cost of goods sold, net income. Every company operates that way and they call it all something different. I share that with marketers because if you can understand where value is created, regardless of the industry that you're in, it's going to make you a better marketer because the activities, the advice, the tools, the initiatives that you get behind is going to drive, hopefully, business outcomes. And unless you're able to help people understand the ROI on the activities that we get involved with in marketing, it will be looked at as an expense. And that's one thing that, particularly in my role as CMO here, my goal and my drive has been to help my business partners recognize and realize the value that is brought to the table by us as marketers. We drive business results. And it's difficult to put a number to everything, but to the extent that you can around a lot of the activities and show the results of journey building and managing customer experience and building brand campaigns that actually drive business results. To the extent that we can do that, we'll be more successful as marketers. And again, that's industry agnostic. That applies to any company that's out there. And so I share that because my background in operations gave me kind of a different perspective on how I approach the discipline of marketing. But yes, it is a discipline. And that's something that I think, for marketers who get the opportunity to do a stint in a different part of your company or in a different part of the business or in the business, those could be valuable experiences as well. So Chris, I hope that's helpful. I just went on for a while there. And
oh, yeah.
feel free to double click on any of that.
No, I think that was great. I think it connects. We hear this a lot, especially with our collegiate community and folks that are even moving to a new field or new industry within marketing. That, really finding your niche and understanding, again, the core essence of creating that value as a marketer is essential. And it, directly kind of connects to some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier as we are doing this great search for talent. Folks are going to find out places that they can bring that skill set, but also connect with the values of an organization within that. So it's all part of that process. And I think you mentioned a little bit earlier about, really surrounding yourselves with folks that really kind of, add to the value of your specific skill sets and strengths. And I think we can kind of bridge into that being a DEI question, because it's all about, one of the greatest value of having a diverse talent in any organization is you get that value. You really let folks shine, kind of live their authentic lives again, and really, give them a space to do what they do well and love doing it at the same time. So kind of transitioning into that conversation, what do you think, again, just kind of broadly, as we kind of start talking about DEI, the role that marketing plays in creating a more, diverse, equitable, and inclusive, not only industry, but as we know, marketing contributes to a lot of other things that are branding and messaging and things that, are really kind of integrated into society. So what do you think that role that we play as marketers or folks that really have a contribution really to that space?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big
and I think of it from two elements. One of which is I mentioned trust and brand earlier today. How do we manage our brand in a world that's increasingly concerned, sensitive to looking for understanding around where a company stands? How do you manage a brand in that environment? And you heard me allude to this earlier today. I want to make sure that we are managing a brand that shows that we are available to all of America. We're a US-based company. We're not international, but if we were, it would be all of the world. Here in the US, I want everyone to see themselves as a potential nationwide customer. And so I manage the brand that has to do that. And to try to navigate that these days is a challenge. So that's the first element, managing that brand. The second element is as a C-suite leader in a Fortune 100 company, I also have the obligation to make sure that our talent pool and our leadership team and the people that we're hiring, the folks who are just graduating from college, our new hires, not just in marketing, but across our company, I too want to make sure that that is representative of the entirety of America. And while sometimes that's a challenge here in Columbus, Ohio, we're a national company, we're nationwide. And so we're looking for talent everywhere. And I want to make sure that that talent looks like America. And I want to make sure that not only are we hiring that talent, but we're investing in that talent. We're putting development plans in place that are real development plans. We're getting people mentors, and we're helping people to have good experiences while they are learning not just the business of insurance, but the discipline of marketing. And so those are two areas where when I look at and when I think of DE&I, we need to show up in both of those places. And so when you look at our campaigns today, you'll see, if you've seen some of our ads, you'll see that we've added we've refreshed a campaign that we refer to as our On Your Side soundtracks, which is, I mentioned the jingle earlier today, that lends itself to music and it lends itself to promotion through Pandora and Spotify and a variety of other sound-based platforms. Let's use our jingle and let's get someone like a Jill Scott to sing that jingle. People have heard and seen Nationwide represented by Peyton Manning and Brad Paisley and a variety of others, all of which they do a great job in helping us to manage our brand. But we have to have that balance. And so Jill Scott and the On Your Side soundtracks is running now. That's a campaign that's actually, the numbers as I look at those, I look at what Ad Tracker is telling me, and when I look at favorability and recall, all of the things that we measure as marketers, it's actually working. It's speaking to all of America. And so there's ways that we can continue to manage that brand while also, and again, I need the right talent to bring that stuff to life, while also investing in that talent, which helps to reflect that commitment to DE&I.
Yeah, no, I think I immediately had as soon as you mentioned Jill Scott, the neo soul lover in me was like, yes, like I wouldn't have thought of that. But I think again, it just kind of goes to show that, the market that you're trying to, really represent is diverse, has a lot of different things
Sure.
that, connect them to a brand. And to me, I just kind of essentially had that moment when I was like, oh, okay, like I can make that connection. And I think that it's a beauty of that space is that you can kind of see brands connect, with different folks and different things that, they might not necessarily correlate with insurance and things like that from initially,
Right.
but
Right.
I think it goes to just really representing that, the intersectionality and the things that really make us, who we are.
And if I could add just a little bit, because I would be remiss in having a conversation around DE&I and not acknowledging the awakening that our country is having right now, and the conversations that we've had over the last year and a half. I mean, it's really important for us to just honor what's happening right now, and then look in the mirror. Nationwide and any other Fortune 100 company, what does your leadership team look like? What does your board look like? Who's in your leader development programs? And is that reflective of, the commitment to DE&I that everyone nowadays is espousing at this point? I would not have been here for the amount of time, almost 21 years at Nationwide, if I didn't sense that was literally and legitimately and authentically part of our values. I've had mentors that have helped me to get to where I am today. So I have the obligation to pay it forward. But as we're talking to that next generation of talent, I would encourage you not only ask questions around, what kind of work will I do when I enter the work world, and what kind of projects will I be on, and how are you going to challenge me and develop me? But I will also look up and look to see, do you see yourself in some of those leadership chairs and in the executive chairs, and use that as part of your evaluation for where you're going to start to build your career. That stuff's really important.
Yeah, I think that's real. I think one of the things that connects to that piece, because I think that's so great as we talk about just general representation and actually having the space to, express those concerns and just, feel like we're in a space where folks can really address, hey, I would love to, learn more about this or develop skills in this area. Maybe you can kind of pull out an example, and it could be either from some of the work that you all are doing at Nationwide, or maybe some other companies that you are seeing some of that. But one of the things that I've continued to navigate, especially if you think about this whole remote work, where folks aren't, in meetings that normally were in meetings before, even just engaging in a virtual space is a little bit harder for, maybe that talent that isn't invited to every single meeting. So what are ways that maybe you all are Nationwide are really tapping or creating those opportunities in a virtual environment? Because I know that sometimes can be hard as opposed to seeing someone and being like, hey, come in for this meeting. You should really, tap into some of the things that are, or we'd love to hear your feedback on this. So
I'll talk for a minute, and hopefully I can hit the answers to your question. Yeah. Because quite frankly, if I had the answer to that, then I would have, we would have it all figured out. Right. We're trying to figure that out ourselves. And it's a challenge because, we have a pretty strong corporate culture here, pretty strong company culture. And in many cases, again, that culture is built and managed and developed by the people, by our people. And so I miss being able to walk to the cafeteria and running into folks that I've worked with when I was out in Sacramento, or people that I've developed when I spent time down in Florida, or folks that, that goes back as far as my hiring class or leader development classes. I mean, I miss that level of interaction. And so we got to work a little bit harder to make sure that we're keeping people connected, because I'd like to think that our culture is a strategic competitive advantage for us. Yeah. People want to do the right things for their company and want to do well. And so some of the things that we've done, we've gone virtual with a lot of our leader development programs. We've made sure, particularly for our up and coming stars, and particularly for those who have started, both those who are experienced and people that have started in the last year or so, we're making sure that they have mentors or a go-to person that they're talking to on a fairly regular basis, in addition to the people that they report to. I'm doing coffee chats, and they're virtual coffee chats, but I'll, at random, I'll pick 8 folks and set up a Microsoft Teams call and make sure that everybody's got their coffee in hand and we're going to talk for an hour, and we're going to talk unscripted, whatever it is you want to talk about. And it's an attempt to make sure that all of our team realizes that even though these circumstances are a little different, I want to make sure that we're staying connected here. And I'm sure, as we listen to the audience, I'm sure they're all experiencing different things that they're looking to do to help maintain that culture while we're remote. But the fact is, the way that we're working today is, there's going to be an element of this that's going to last forever. And so we have to adjust to somewhat of a new normal in how we interact with people. And I just want to make sure that our people feel valued and connected and engaged. And I'm open to suggestions, Chris, if you got something. It's tough these days, but we're going to do what we can. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it was right when you said, like, if we had the answer to that question, I think we would solve a lot of maintaining that connection. But same thing for you. I think we all here at the AMA continue to just do those one-off meetings with folks, especially as we're hiring new team members that we haven't met yet. We also are going remote. So I think we're expanding our just regional aspect of our organization, but it's those random, just scripted conversations with team members to get to know them a little bit better. And especially, again, this past year, giving folks space to kind of talk about things or like prioritize their mental health as we're, navigating the multiple crises that are, have happened, unfortunately are continuing to happen, and, will be an impact for us moving forward, as well as, this whole new working style of being remote. So,
yeah, these are literally, this is an overused term. These are unprecedented times.
Yes.
And so when there's, what I like to say, when there's disruption, there's opportunity. And so we'll just have to find what that opportunity looks like. And in many cases, as a leader, I found that if I can just listen to what's happening with my team members and with our associates, I'll learn from that. And so we're trying to do as much as that as we can. But yeah, it's very different these days, Chris.
It is. All right, cool. Well, kind of pulling all this together, I think we've kind of, wrap up some of the bigger themes that we were kind of talking about today. And maybe I'd love to hear some additional insight. If you essentially could have one major challenge or a goal for the marketing industry as we move forward, particularly again in the DEI lens, what would that challenge or goal be? And just kind of adding some additional support from wherever you might pull in, whether it's your current role, things that you're seeing already happening that are moving forward. But as we kind of talk about that, I'd love to hear just, again, what your thoughts on that challenge of how, as marketers, we really can incorporate DEI into everything that we do.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind, Chris. The first is, and this is a challenge that I've also posed with my team as well, have the courage to put good ideas on the table, even if they're non-traditional ideas. Have the courage to do so. And so, as an example, I mentioned the Jill Scott campaign that we're running. There are folks that are here in my executive suite that just aren't familiar with her, which means, I could have gone with a different artist with a broader appeal or with a name recognition that would have covered more people. But it took a little courage to do something different. And it's actually working, particularly as we look at the numbers based on how the ad is performing. I lost a little sleep over that one, I'm not gonna lie. But you got to have some courage in order to do so, because it's very easy to stick with what and it takes a little courage to go out on a limb, particularly in this space, because it is unfamiliar and uncharted territory for folks. And so that's one thing that comes to mind. The other is what I mentioned earlier, and over the last year or so, there's been a substantial level of interest in communicating to all communities, particularly communities of color. And in many cases, that could just be lip service. And so as an associate, which I am, and as a leader, which I am, I have that obligation to make sure that that's more than just lip service. If we're going to say we're committed to any particular issue, we need to be able to put our actions behind that. And I would encourage, not just from a marketing perspective, but from a leadership perspective, it's really important to be authentic with your words and actions. People see that, customers see it, our community see it, our associates see it. And so it's really important that we stay aligned with what we're saying. If you're going to say Black Lives Matter, you should believe that. And your actions should show that. If you believe in, diversity, equity, and inclusion for all, and you want to promote and hire and encourage people to consider your product or your company from that perspective. Your leadership team should look like that. Your board should look like that. The people who are marketing your products should represent all of that. And so those are two things that come to mind, Chris. And I'll bet if I sat here longer, I'd think of more. But I will tell you that authenticity, the words to actions, and then the courage to make a non-traditional decision every now and then, within limits. And of course, let's be smart about how we run our business. But as marketers, we have more power than we think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I second almost everything that you have mentioned, especially in that challenge of, doing things differently. I think just by nature of, again, as we talk about these unprecedented times, have kind of forced us to do that. And with a lot of the uncertain times, there was obviously a lot of, things that weren't positive that happened, but there were some silver linings that I think came out of that. And I think it goes to show, as you just mentioned, that sometimes, thinking differently or doing things in a completely different manner within some limits, really creates some really exciting things that probably would have never even been talked about, discussed about, and, really presents us an opportunity to do better as an industry. So
Sure.
I appreciate that and completely, connect with that piece as well.
Yeah, if one last thing that kind of comes to mind, and I alluded to this earlier, I'm not sitting in this chair if it wasn't for someone who invested in my career a long time ago, for someone who took an interest in me as a mentee. And so for those experienced leaders that are on the line, my encouragement to you would be to mentor someone. And for those who are new and coming into the industry, my advice would be to look for a mentor, or I'd like to refer to it as kind of your personal board of directors.
Yes.
Get a handful of people that's going to give you advice as you work your way through your career. That's helped me not just position myself for opportunities, but also to learn from some mistakes as I've moved throughout my career. And so, if you're in a position to mentor, you should be, and if you're in a position to learn, you should be seeking and being open to real feedback to folks from folks who have some experience in front of you. So couldn't underscore that point more. That mentorship thing's a big deal.
Yeah, I think we all can kind of, especially for me, like think back of a handful of mentors that I've had over the years that have completely impacted my life in so many positive ways. So definitely the power and impact of mentor and mentees continues, I think, especially as we're finding ways to connect, as we just talked about in this virtual
Sure.
way. That's a perfect way to kind of get those kind of engagements and connections happening. So pulling in that piece around mentorship and the importance of maintaining those connections. What are some of the ways that you stay connected, especially as a CMO and as a marketer of color? I'm sure there's like a lot of folks out there you probably reach out to, you want to stay connected with, navigate some of the challenges you're doing. So what are some of the ways that you are staying connected within your own network?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because again, I've been CMO less than 2 years at this point. And it's funny, I will tell you one of the first calls that I got when I was named CMO was from Jerry Devard, who's part of an organization, one of the founding members of an organization called Becca, which is a group of Black CMOs across different companies, across industries. And her advice to me was very simple. As a new leader, particularly in a marketing chair, she was there to give me advice around just living into the moment and being my authentic self, and just kind of leaning into the fact that you're not named CMO just entitled. The name of the game is for you to be that Fortune 100 leader. And we had a really good conversation around that included marketing. That's the name of the game for the organization, but it was bigger than just that. And so that's an example. A&A and being able to maintain connections with other marketers, both marketers of color and others. That's been a really valuable resource for me. And I mentioned this earlier, that whole thing around mentoring and having mentors. I still have mentors here at Nationwide in different parts of our business. I have mentors that are at other companies to whom I can ask advice and counsel. And so having access to that helps me to make better decisions. And so I'm glad you asked that question, because I do think it's important that, once you get to a certain level, you are that mentor. But it's also really important for us to have access to people to bounce these questions past and to help make us better as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps in that feeling of not feeling alone and making those, as you mentioned, better decisions and having folks that you can kind of, hey, am I doing this right, or what are some of your thoughts on this? So, and just really having that space too for folks of color, I think it's even more deeply impacted just because there's a whole layer of different things that go along with being in positions, especially at a CMO level. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that story and what that space means for you.
That old saying, they say it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to make sure that we're reaching out as well.
I feel like we could talk all day about this and continue to keep going on this, but I wanted just to kind of, again, reiterate my thanks and deep appreciation for you, Ramon, just taking the time again to share your story. One, to have this conversation. Again, it's kind of been essentially a privilege and an honor to get the opportunity to have the conversation with you and share this with our community. I think, again, it's a first step of many as we continue this conversation of talking about things that folks are talking about, and especially the impact that it has on our field, our industry, and then just using that as a way to share that, so folks don't feel like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this, or these are things that we're also navigating and dealing with these times. So I'm hoping this effort really continues to highlight the diverse narratives that are in our industry, as much as like folks like you, but also, again, inspires folks that are on the other side of this this interview that are tuning in. So thank you again. I completely appreciate, again, all your time and effort for today. So we'll close out right now.
Thank you, Chris. This was a lot of fun.